here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Well, guess what? The WGA and Hollywood has reached a tentative deal. Now, Tony Welch is on my line. We've talked to him about his role in The Irishman. He is an actor and one of the 160,000 actors that also want fair wage as well in the SAG-Aftra strike. But Tony, thanks for joining me today.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for asking me to be on. I appreciate it.
Loved having you on last time, so I figured let's pick up the conversation because, you know, what is your main issue? Why did you decide to, join the line, if you will? Because I'm sure every actor did, but what was your purpose? What was your drive?
Well, for me personally, I mean, this strike is really about and has been about the middle income, blue collar, so to speak, type actor. It's not about the A-listers. I mean, the A-listers, this has nothing to do with them. This is a minimum basic agreement contract, and A-listers don't work on the minimum basic agreement contract. So this is I agree because the union, the AMPTP, the producers, have been working on a contract that is antiquated. I mean, it was called, SAG-Aftra developed what they call a new media agreement, a new media contract, when Netflix was virtually brand new. I mean, and they called it new media because, well, it's unproven. We don't know if it's going to be successful. We don't know how it's going to work out. So let's just, go with a slow contract. Let's not make it a big deal, and we'll see what happens. That was, the producer's take on it. Well, it's no longer new. It's not new at all, and it's very successful. It's been proven to be successful, very profitable for the studios and the streaming platforms, but not so much the actors and the writers. And then this is the problem. So it's a very old contract. It's a very old formula, and it needs to be updated to what we're dealing with right now, which is streaming's at an all-time high. Network television is not as successful as it used to be. I mean, this generation of people, they're basically, what they're doing is they're streaming more. They're streaming more and more, and so, but we're not seeing the profits on that. So this is why I decided, with most of my other SAG-Aftra members, to join the line. I mean, 87% of the SAG-Aftra membership does not qualify. They don't make enough money to purchase the SAG-Aftra health insurance. The SAG-Aftra health, you have to make between $26,000 and $27,000 just as an actor to be able to buy into the SAG-Aftra health plan. And that's not a lot of money by far, 26, 27, and they're not making that. Some of them are not coming close to that figure as actors. So it's high time that a lot of people out there are under the impression that this is all about the A-listers and they don't need the money. They're super rich. They're elitist. This strike is not about them. It's never been about them. So that's why I decided to join.
Well, a couple of thoughts here then. What's it like, though, to see an A-lister like a George Clooney or I think Bryan Cranston? I mean, some of these guys have joined the line. Sherry O'Terry did a TikTok on the line as well. Does that mean a lot? Does that matter to you guys
It does mean a lot.
Okay.
It does mean a lot. Yeah, absolutely means a lot. It means that they understand. I mean, because let me tell you, other than and I don't want to bring up a controversial subject, but other than the Nepo babies, that's been an issue, controversial issue in Hollywood lately. Other than those group of actors, a lot of those actors that we listed are A-listers now, at one point or another, have been in our shoes at one point. They didn't come out of the gate, getting offered multi-million-dollar contracts. A lot of them, they worked their way up, so they understand, and we're grateful that they understand. And it's important because it's important that the producers see that these A-listers are backing us. That they may think they can do without us little guys, but they can't do without these A-listers. And if the A-listers are backing us, it means a great deal, and we were all very appreciative of that. We actually are.
Do you know Fran Drescher? Because I know she's basically the union president, isn't she?
Yes, yeah, yes, she is, and and she's. I tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. Originally, I did not vote for her. But now, seeing the way she's handled this, I've gained tremendous respect for her, and what she's done and what she stands for. So now, I did vote for her again this time around, but the first time around I did not. And she's strong, and she understands what we need, and she understands that there's a big unfortunately, to a degree, I don't want to get too political, but an anti-union movement in the country, And they're coming at the unions. I mean, UAW is on strike now. Mm-hmm. They're coming at the unions, and basically she understands that this contract was pretty much do or die. Not to be overly dramatic for us, because if we caved in on this contract, 3 years from now, who knows what will be happening? I mean, they want to virtually abolish background actors with AI. Okay, altogether, they want to scan a background actor one time and use their image in perpetuity, and just pay them one time. All right, and then that knocks them out, and that's a big part of the union membership, unfortunately, because, like I said, 87% don't make at least $27,000 a year as actors. So, and also, if
they did AI, I think the audience would notice, and it'd probably look pretty bad. Just throwing that out there too.
Well, it would. I don't know how it would look for background, possibly, but that was the main issue right now for background. But I think the concern was if they do it for background, a couple of years from now, what are they going to try to do with like principal actors, the actors that are actually the main actors that will speak lines and things like that? How can they get away with that? They'll try. If they're allowed, they'll try. So that was the main concern there. So
I'm so glad you're talking about this, because I wondered, as the Irishman, and I mentioned this in the show, my show last night.
Yeah.
The CGI work done to make these guys look years younger was ridiculous. And was that sort of a bellwether movie in the sense of, well, if they can really make these guys look younger by, on a streaming thing, was that a bellwether movie? Meaning, could that be the future?
Well, I don't know. I mean, to go back to that briefly, I mean, that was more of, to tell you the truth, that was a Martin Scorsese, from what I understand, decision altogether. Martin Scorsese he was interviewed. I mean, Netflix has had behind the scenes, like little mini documentaries on The Irishman. If you go into Netflix, you'll see them. And Martin Scorsese was in a booth talking with Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel. And he was talking about the fact that he did not want to hire younger actors for this piece because he did not want to explain the history involved, all the history, the Bay of Pigs and Kennedy and all that kind of stuff, to younger actors. That's what he said. It's documented on film there. So he chose to use the older actors and de-age them.
Do any of the actors that you work with, I know you actually literally got to work a scene with Al Pacino, they never talk to you about this kind of stuff though, right? Did they ever worry, did they ever vent to you like, oh my God, this
No, not to me, no. I don't think, not to me they didn't, no. But I don't know how they felt about it. I guess, it's weird. I mean, no one, and also when it was happening, no one knew how it was really going to look at the time. You don't know how that's going to look until post-production. And, in the middle of it, they don't know. They're hoping it's going to be okay. It's going to look good or it's going to look feasible. But no one really knew. No, they didn't speak to me about that. But
Tony, 160,000 members in SAG-Aftra, and I feel like all of you have various personalities, different personalities. So on the solidarity, and of course, Hollywood, let's be honest, it can be a backbiting, backstabbing kind of thing, right? So
sure.
For 160,000 people, because that's what you guys are, you're people, in addition to being actors, you're people, to come together like this.
People. We're not real people like those commercials say. They're real people, not actors.
Right. But that had to be, that means something, and that's something that the average person, the layman, if you will, should pick up on that. Oh my gosh, all these actors who probably have egos and personalities all came together and said, no, we are in this together. That's almost unseen in the entertainment industry, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this was the first time, I think, since 1960, if I'm correct, somewhere in the 60s, that both the Writers Guild and the actors went out on strike at the same time, or virtually the same time. So this was a Hollywood shutdown. I mean, the Directors Guild of America, they settled their contract early on in the process, but really, they were on strike too, because even though they settled the contract, they can't work without the writers and the actors. So they've been sitting this out too. But this strike is also, not to be corny or anything, but as Fran Drescher has said, many have said, this strike is also about the average worker. I mean, AI can and probably will affect many of us for years to come in all industries, all right? I mean, if they can replace actors and they can replace a worker on a line, what else can they do with it, So a lot of middle-class, blue-collar, hard labor workers are threatened by this, okay? I mean, this doesn't apply to Hollywood. So, that's an issue. Fair wages are an issue. If you look at the CEO salaries, what some make in an hour, people don't make in a year. Okay, and that's a fact. That's ridiculous. So there's no reason for that. And without the worker, again, not to be corny or dramatic here, without the worker, how much is that CEO going to be successful? Let's be honest. How much?
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I said last night. I said, these Hollywood industry executives and executives across the board should understand that. And I hate to say the guy in the back room, but that's what it kind of feels like when you're in the background, right? The guy in the back room writing, the guy on the set behind George Clooney, making that scene happen, and the hours on the set. I mean, we talk about set life a lot. 10 hours, 12 hours on the set. I mean, that's a human labor thing right there. And without your hard work, they don't make the money. And I feel like this is a very capitalistic issue because it involves pushing into the capitalistic market of the entertainment industry, and you guys are yes, human capital, but you're making the money by being there for 10 hours a day, so they have to recognize that.
Of course. Well, we hope they do. Well, I hope they do now. I mean, one of the AMPTP slogans or threats were, they're going to let us, and I'm sure you heard about it. It was very popular. Unfortunately, it was a very popular slogan that, like, it got the members crazy. The membership. Ron Perlman went on, like, I think Instagram, the actor Ron Perlman, and almost threatened one of the executives. But it was like that they were going to hold out the AMPTP until the writers and the actors and all these other people started losing their homes and not being able to pay rent and not being able to live. And then because it was a necessary evil, they had to teach us a lesson because we were being greedy by asking for small percentages of increases, where these guys were making yearly salaries. For us, they were making it in an hour, so it's ridiculous. It's like, and they were going to hopefully try to just squeeze us out and make us wait it out until, we lost everything, and then we'd come groveling back to the negotiation table. Let me tell you why that was such a bad strategy, okay? First of all, like I said, 87% of the SAG-Aftra membership can't make $27,000 a year to buy health insurance. Do you really think any of those actors were paying their mortgage or rent solely from income made by acting? No, they had 3 or 4 side gigs. They have this temporary job. They have a second job. I mean, and so what they would have done is they would have picked up an additional side gig or an additional job to make the difference.
Tony, how many jobs do you work right now?
Well, right now I'm partially retired, and I have gig work. So I can work at the Trade Center, or I can work at the Javits Center. So it depends. But my point is, a lot of them will work. They were working side gigs anyway, because if you're making $27,000 a year and you're getting health insurance, that's probably the most you'll make for the 87% that I'm talking about. But a lot of them make a lot less than that, so they have to have other jobs. So we would have waited as long as we needed to. The majority of this membership, we would have waited, because we're not losing homes because we're not making money in the industry. We weren't making enough money in the industry to start with, which is what this strike is all about. So that's why it's really so going back to what I'm talking about is that this is about everybody. This is about the middle class, blue collar worker, middle class, I guess, white collar worker too. I mean, that work for Fortune 500 companies, and the CEOs make ridiculously exorbitant amounts of money, and they cry and complain when they have to give an increase of 2 or 3%. So this is why we're at a point now, and that in combination with the fact that, again, there's a bit of an anti-union push in this country, and it's going to be a tug of war, and we're going to see what happens here, because
labor unions, I don't know about the leaders sometimes in various unions, but the guys and gals in the union themselves are not communists. Can we just say that right now? I feel like there's a theory out there that
we're not if we're communists because we want a living wage, and I guess we're communists. Communists because we want to be paid for sharing the wealth. I mean, again, without the hard work and labor of the writers, the directors, the actors, the makeup and wardrobe people, the hairstylists on the sets, the grips, the electricians, the teamsters, truckers on the sets and locations and all that, these guys won't make most of their money. Part of the problem was, though, with some of these streaming platforms, for example, Amazon and Apple, okay, they make a bulk of their income and their fortunes from other sources of income. See, so they were able to wait a little bit. They thought they were going to wait a little bit longer. I mean, Amazon has Amazon, Apple has iPhone and computers, but some of the other companies, they don't. They're called the legacy studios. Like, NBC has Peacock, but they don't make money from anything else but content, creative content. So that was, they started fighting amongst themselves near the end of these negotiations, these producers, by the way, because some felt they could wait it out forever. They didn't need anybody to come back, and the other ones, the other legacy studios, needed us to come back as soon as possible. So we'll see what happens. But this is still not over just yet. I would imagine it's going to be another week before everything gets ratified, and even then, so if the writers go back to work maybe in a week or two, maybe they'll tighten up some scripts that are already in production, or they'll start working on new storylines for stories, whatever the case may be. We still have to get SAG-Aftra fixed and worked out. So hopefully the producers and then people go back to the negotiating table. Hopefully by the end of this coming week, we'll see what happens.
Tony Welch is my guest, and I know that you're an award-winning actor as well. We can get into that a little bit, but I want to ask you this, because how much did you make? Did you notice a difference in residuals when you were on, terrestrial television versus streaming? Did you notice a difference, or what?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the thing is that, and that's a good point too. This even applies to the writers, particularly the writers too. A lot of the writers that are seasoned and veteran, have been in Hollywood for years. They used to work on network television series, all right, the 1 hour dramas, okay, and the regular network series used to be 20, 22, 24, sometimes 26 episodes a season. All right, now they've bounced over to streaming, where oftentimes you'll get a limited series of 6 to 8 episodes. Sometimes the full season is 10 to 12 episodes, 14 episodes. And then that series ends until the next season. Sometimes the next season is a year and a half later. So they're working with less episodes than they did on primetime network TV, and they're waiting longer in between. So, and the residuals, well, this is part of the new, for the actor, for myself, for the residuals, this is part of that new media contract. They worked on that contract with residual schedules where we don't know how this is really going to work. It's brand new. It's a new source of income. The streaming platforms are brand new. This is when Netflix was really, really brand new, and there was no thing as like, Paramount Plus and Amazon and Apple. I mean, Netflix was the king for a while, and then all these other companies realized we can do the same thing Netflix is doing. And then Netflix lost a lot of their content. Every NBC show that was on Netflix, once Peacock came, they took it. Once every ABC show that was on Netflix, once Hulu came, they took it back. So This is what happened. And the residuals got smaller and smaller. They played them more and more, and the actor got less and less. So yeah, I mean, sometimes, you can get the first residual check could be a nice check, but then the second time around it's half of that. The third time around it's half of that. The fourth time around it's half of that. Before you know it, you're getting $1.50, $1.25, 10 cents, 3 cents. I've seen checks for 3. I've seen checks where it costs more to print out the check, put it in the envelope, and mail it than the check is worth. So, I mean, I've seen residual checks. I've gotten residual checks for 3, 4, 5, 10 cents, 12 cents. You don't even want to take it to the bank. It's embarrassing. So
no, it's very measly for, as we mentioned before.
It is.
Those that want to contribute, and you guys are on the set because you love it. So, and I don't know if you want to say you love helping the studios, but you love what you do, and I guess part of that is helping the studios make the movie, right? So there's a lot of...
I mean, we want a partnership. That's what we're asking for. I mean, it's a partnership. We understand the structure, who's going to make more money, but we're not. But again, we just want a fair share. I mean, these studios don't get content to play over and over and over and over without the creative talent to put it out there. That's the bottom line. So, I mean, I guess the Amazons could get out of the business altogether and they wouldn't care. I guess Apple TV can go back to, and get out and just do with their Apple products. But the other studios, the Paramount Plus, the Peacock NBC, the Hulu ABC, they're all content driven. Without the creative talent behind it, they're nowhere. And they know it, but we've just settled for too long. Part of the problem is that I think the SAG-Aftra membership is far too big. Personally, I've been a SAG member since 1985, when before the merger. When I joined in 1985, SAG was SAG, AFTRA was AFTRA. AFTRA and SAG merged in 2012. All right. I mean, if you look at the membership of the DGA, there's about approximately 18,000, maybe 17, 18,000 members. Mm-hmm. The Writers Guild is 11,000 members. SAG-Aftra is 160,000 members. Now, we're talking about actors making a living, all right, a livable way. There's just not enough work in this industry on a union level for 160,000 members to make a regular living. All right, so that's another issue that will never be addressed because they need to freeze membership, and they're just not going to do that. But that's a whole other issue for another time. But it's something because you just can't. If you know the industry and you know how it works and the amount of work you can get on any given year, 160,000 members will never make a living.
Right.
Some will come close, but not likely. So. But I mean, so now we're waiting on this to be ratified. The next step is going to be, I think the lawyers are looking over for the WGA, they're looking over the contract. They're going to check and make sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the legal verbiage is right. There's no loopholes, involved in that. Then it goes back to the WGA negotiating committee. They'll look it over, they'll approve it, they'll send it out to the WGA board out west and out east. And if those two boards approve it, then it goes out to the 11,000 members for ratification. So if they ratify it, then the strike is officially over. But until then, what they're telling their members is that there's no more pickets right now, but they are encouraging WGA members to still go onto the SAG-Aftra picket lines and picket with us.
Well, I've got a question about that. So, was there a coordination after writers went on strike? What made the actors go in July? Because I feel like there was the timing of it, and then all of a sudden the actors. I originally thought it was in support of the writers. That was part of it, right?
No, it was contract deadlines. To be honest, June 30th was the contract. For some reason, all of the three major unions, DGA, it was the Directors Guild, WGA, and SAG-Aftra, had their contracts expiring on the same dates. So that's what it was, and we SAG-Aftra gave the AMP an extension because they started negotiating. First of all, they negotiated with the DGA first, AMPTP, and they got that out of the way right away. The DGA settled right away, and they thought they were going to go back to work right away, and that didn't happen because then the WGA went on strike, and then SAG-Aftra went on strike. So no, and then once we decided we were going on strike as well, then they coordinated, the picket lines and solidarity and all that kind of thing. But, that's just union solidarity to start with. That usually happens anyway. But it was more the contract, the dates, the deadlines. They all ended on the same date or very close to the same date. And they were up for renewal. And, I don't know why they do that because the AMPTP can't negotiate in good faith with all three at the same time, and so, but I think they thought that they were going to, get the DGA done first, and then the other two unions would follow along with what the DGA settled for, and that's just not the case because the issues aren't even the same for the most part, so.
Well,
that's what happened there.
Yeah, and I got to ask you this. So here we are. There's a tentative deal. I brought you on because I want to know if that bodes well for SAG-Aftra or if it's totally unrelated. I feel like there's some correlation to it, though, right?
Well, the tentative? What's tentative? Tentative? What are you asking?
The deal with WGA, does that mean? Right. Does that wake the Hollywood execs looking at the actors' contracts next? Does that wake them up a little bit, or is it totally separate? Like, is there going to be a SAG-Aftra deal, like as you say, 2 weeks from now? Is that what you're thinking, or?
Well, it should wake them up a little bit faster because I think AMPTP wants to get back into production right away. I mean, coming up on the fourth quarter of the year for them, and basically the holidays are coming up, and so I think they want to get back into production as soon as possible. But the tentative only means that's standard. Language for this type of negotiation. It's tentative because of all the things I mentioned earlier. It has to go back to the lawyers, then it has to go back to the negotiating committee, then it has to be approved by the boards, and once that's all done, it still has to be ratified by the membership. Now, let's just play devil's advocate. If it wasn't ratified by the membership, okay, then in theory it's supposed to go back to the negotiating table. But the producers have mentioned several times in several trade papers that this is their best and final offer. So indicating that this is their they're not going to renegotiate. You take this or you leave it, which leads me to believe that the WGA got everything they really wanted, which is good because the producers know that the WGA has no intention of caving anytime soon, nor do the actors. And if they really want to get back into work, now I could be wrong on that, but I don't think that's the case. I think that we're going to have to find out. I don't know the terms. None of the members know the terms just yet. They're not releasing them of the contract, but it seems like the writer's going to get everything they want. And then if they do, that bodes well for the SAG-Aftra contract, because two of those major terms, well, three of them actually, are similar to what SAG-Aftra wants, which is the AI protection, which is the increase in basic wages, and also the increase and a different schedule for residuals. The actors and the writers want transparency from these streamers about how many times these shows are aired. And based on popularity, if they're very, very popular and they're big hits, there should be more money for the actors, not less, in residuals. So all of that is what they were both looking for, the writers and the actors. And if the writers do get that, then I can't imagine that the actors are not going to get it as well. So.
Well, this is I called this a cultural shift where everybody was on strike in Hollywood, and that, would you agree with that? This is a cultural shift that maybe the workers of Hollywood are going to get what they want. That's something barely even discussed sometimes.
Right. Well, I think so, and I think the fact that all the WGA and the actors that went out at the same time, made that happen, really. I mean, that's, like I said, that hasn't happened since 1960 or somewhere in the 60s there. And, this is the first time. And basically, without those two groups, Hollywood's shut down. I mean, Hollywood, for the unions and real Hollywood, it's shut down. So they know this. But they thought, the AMPTP thought they were going to just wait it out. We'd start fighting amongst each other in each union, and there'd be pressure to cave. And then, once the money started running out, they would bleed us out, as they said, and make people start losing their homes and not being able to pay their mortgages, that they were going to have the upper hand. But again, for the reasons I stated earlier, that hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen. A vast majority of writers and actors don't make their living regularly from the industry. So it's not like they were going to lose anything from not working anyway. And at this point, we just want to make what we're supposed to make. And we're not asking for anything outrageous or exorbitant, but fair.
Tony,
fair.
Did it piss you off that the award ceremony still went on when these strikes were going on? I felt that kind of odd, actually.
It didn't piss me off. I think it might have pissed some of the writers. It was really about the writers. The writers, they used writers for those shows. But now, you see, that's the other thing. Like, if you want to talk about the Drew Barrymore situation, see, she wasn't really violating any contract from SAG. This contract is for streamers and television and film. It's a different contract for talk shows, game shows, and things like that. So she wasn't in violation of anything from the SAG-Aftra side. She would have been spoken to probably had she had an actor or an actress on promoting a film or TV show right now going on currently. That's under the AMPTP banner. But as far as writing is concerned, she's not a member of the Writers Guild, neither am I, but she had Writers Guild writers on her show, and she felt that she really wasn't being a scab or crossing a picket line because she wasn't hiring non-union writers. She was going to write what she was doing, but she's a non-union writer herself. She's not WGA. So that whole thing there is just basically, it didn't bother me from the writer's standpoint, but
by the way, that show was still going on until someone spoke up, I guess, because that was going on for a while now, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were picketing us. They picketed outside CBS. They picketed outside her studio, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And then, of course, the others started to cave, Bill Maher and The View and some of these other people to talk. So I guess so, yeah. But again, they have to understand these they're in the unions themselves. Even if they're not in WGA, if they're in SAG-Aftra, all right, there's union solidarity. There has to be. One of the other problems on Hollywood is that this title, this hyphenate of the actor-producer or the writer-producer, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there sometimes when it happens, because if you're an actor but you're also a producer under the AMPTP, or a writer producer under the AMPTP, like the showrunner of a TV show is often an executive producer or producer as well. So there's conflict of interest there. So that's always that's something they might have to iron out one day. I don't know if they'll ever get to do that, but
Tony, where did you?
They should address.
This is fascinating. Where real fast before we wrap up, where did you picket? And obviously you still will be picketing, right? So that is not ending just because this agreement is in the air.
No, we're not ending because we're still on strike. As a matter of fact, the WGA has told their members. I have many WGA member friends that I either speak to or I follow on social media, and their union's telling them officially they're still on strike. they are still on strike until the contract is ratified. So they are stopping picketing. Okay, they're no longer going to picket the WGA, although they're encouraging their members to picket with SAG-Aftra, because we're still on strike. But technically, the WGA is still on strike until that contract is ratified by the 11,000 members of the WGA. So.
And where have you been? If you don't mind me asking, where can we find you? Can we join in solidarity as average people on the line with you? Is that a possibility?
Sure. Oh yeah. There's if you go on my page, that's on my page, and I'll post it again. There's 4 locations in New York City. It's NBC Universal, which is 30 Rock. Netflix Warner Discovery, which is one I typically go to, which is 888 Broadway, off of 19th Street and Broadway. There's Amazon, which I believe is on 10th Avenue and at 33rd Street, and there's one other. But I'll post them. There's 4 locations in New York, and it's typically 9:30 a.m. to 12 noon at these locations. Today they are not picketing in observance for Yom Kippur, but tomorrow they'll pick right back up 9:30 to 12.
Any celebrity sightings? Because I know that my other guest on this, Kenyatta Simpson, who I don't know if you know or not, he mentioned that he had ran into some celebrities, like I think Kevin Bacon was on one. A few of his guys.
Cedric, yeah. Well, I met a couple myself, and I posted. I met the last time I was there. F. Murray Abraham was walking the line. F. Murray Abraham walks the line at Netflix Warner almost every day, almost. Wow. He's a great guy. And Laura Dern was there the other day with Isabella Rossellini. So yeah, they're out there. I mean, they're out there because they understand. Really, look, we're the little guys, but if you had any show with just A-listers, it would still be pretty boring. It wouldn't be. I mean, we're the guys, we're the day players, we're the guys that do one scene with a couple of lines, we're out. We're the guys that do several scenes for a couple of episodes continuously, then we're out. But it's all part of the whole the whole ball of works there. And they understand. And a lot of them started out. And they became successful through hard work. But even though some people think it's elitist and they have spoons in them, not platinum spoons. It's not. They've worked hard, okay, and they got to where they are through hard work. It's a cutthroat, very difficult, extremely harsh business at times. All right, and for them to attain that level of success, you have had to have worked hard to get there. So, and they understand that they weren't born into it, or they didn't just roll out of bed and become that. They had to work for it, and they understand that they were there at one point, and now they're supporting us, and we appreciate that. Every one of us appreciate whenever we see a celebrity of that stature come out on the line and walk with us. It's much appreciated. It really is.
All right. Well, one last thing here. Where can we find you? Website, Instagram? Because I know we follow each other, but for those who don't know where to follow you, where should they link up?
Well, I have a basic Facebook page, Tony Welch, but I'm professionally in SAG-Aftra as Anthony Welch, so I have an Anthony Welch Facebook actor-writer page. You can go through Anthony Welch, actor-writer on Facebook, or Tony Welch on Facebook. And on Instagram, I'm official Tony Welch, and then just Tony Welch. I had to do 2 accounts for Instagram. Tony Welch and official Tony Welch. So that's where I am. And I appreciate you having me on. I always love chatting with you. And hopefully.
And for those who don't know, what awards have you won? Just to finish up that, because I know you have won some.
Yeah, well, we were nominated. I'm creator and writer of Street Smart. It was a pilot episode that it's in development for a series about the opioid epidemic. But we won the 2021 NYC Web Fest Award for Best Pilot. Was nominated for Best Action Suspense, and I was nominated as for Outstanding Achievement in Writing for that. So, and then of course I also won a Best Ensemble Award back in the 90s for theater at the Pasadena Playhouse for a stage play called The Jones Boy. So, but I've been at it for a lot of years. I've been up and down. I've been in and out. I've been on and off. That's the life of an actor. Sometimes, you got to do what you got to do and get out of it for a little while and come back. So, and that's a big part of what the membership does too. That's why the gig work, the temporary work, the secondary jobs, this is what we do until we get that big break, hopefully. And
I always find it amazing real fast that these guys, that actors pick up these jobs as like bartenders and whatnot, and then they literally tell their story to you and have a drink with you. It's kind of cool. I mean, this is how down to earth a lot of these actors are, you know.
Well, yeah, because we've been there. We've not. I mean, like I said, and I'm not criticizing the Nepo. I know some Nepo babies from my years in acting, and they also have their struggles. They've also had their issues, and it's not easy for them either for different reasons. But the majority of actors that have made it have not. They didn't start out that. They didn't start out as an A-lister making millions and millions of dollars per project. They started out working 3 jobs, 2 jobs, theater jobs, bartenders, God knows what kind of jobs. You know, until they got the break, and there was a lot of sacrifices. A lot of them would sleep on friends' couches until they were able to make it because they couldn't pay the rent. But they wanted to. It was more important for them to buy, take photos of themselves and headshots and things like that you do as an actor that you make sacrifices for, and you never know if it's going to pay off. So that's why you really do have to love it, because you never know if it's going to. There's no guarantee.
So the kids that want to do this, because I know you were probably a kid growing up wanting to do this. And they see all of this happening. What's your advice? Do you tell them just to stick with it because this will?
Well, I think you got to do it. As corny and cliche as this may be, you have to do it because you really love it. You really have to. If you're doing it for the fame and the success and the red carpet and all that, well, that's great, and that may come. But it doesn't come automatically. It comes with all the hard work I mentioned earlier. It comes with all the sacrifices that you have to make to get there. Okay, if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, if you want instantaneous gratification, don't do it, because it's not going to be instantaneous. All right, and even if it is, it can last. It can be fleeting these
15 minutes of fame, as they say.
Exactly,
right?
and these days could be even half of that. With the attention span a lot of us have. So good luck. You know what I mean? So love it. Do it because you love it, and then if you make the money and you gain success, I consider that a bonus. I really do.
Well, Tony Welch, this has been an eye-opening conversation. I'm glad we got inside the picket line once again, and this time with Tony Welch.
I'm no expert by far, and I don't claim to be. But I have a lot of experience in the industry, and I've been talking to a lot of writers as well as actors on the negotiating committees. So it's helped me understand the situation too. So, and I appreciate you having me on. And like I said, I always love chatting with you. I really do.
And that has been Tony Welch, actor on One Leg Up with Alex Garrett. We'll talk to you soon here on the network.